Introducing Elizabeth. Thanks for joining. Elizabeth is our CEO and co-founder of GreenPortfolio, a climate fintech company that helps consumers fight climate change with their financial decisions by scoring their investments and bank accounts for climate impact. Today, Elizabeth will be discussing about greenwashing, how to avoid it in retail investing and personal finance. Greenwashing is the use of misleading marketing claims to portray something as more climate friendly than it is. It has increased as the demand of values-aligned finance grows. Elizabeth will be discussing about how to spot greenwashing, where ESG ratings fall, and what GreenPortfolio provides as a trusted guide for climate-conscious retail investing and banking. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Pooja. It's nice to see everyone and meet everyone here. I'm Elizabeth Landau. I'm the COO of GreenPortfolio, and really what I'm here today that I would talk about is greenwashing, specifically in the world of retail investing and personal finance. And so, Morgan Stanley puts out, every few years, kind of an analysis on what millennials, Gen Z, and general population are thinking from a retail investment perspective. And looking at the main 4 barriers to switching over to sustainable investments, there's things around performance, greenwashing, a lack of way to measure impact, and time and effort that's required to figure out all of this. And so today, I'm really going to touch on these 3 things. This is for informational purposes only, so I'm not here to give you financial advice. We're not going to talk about financial performance today. And so, as we've mentioned, what is greenwashing? So let's just start there. It's really a marketing tactic that misleads to make something seem better for the environment than it actually is. It's all different types of degrees of lying, right? And obviously, my background, I'm actually a chemical engineer, but turned brand manager and brand strategist and marketer is, I believe in responsible marketing. Companies, consumers, all, deserve, obviously, a sales tactic, but should not be misled on this topic. And so looking at it in terms of the world of personal finance, just going to go through a couple of examples. So Chase, big bank, you may have a credit card from them, you may have a bank account with them. On Instagram a few years ago, they posted a video on Earth Day of things that seemed very, climate friendly, announcing advancements in sustainable investing. But at the end of the day, they are the world leader in fossil fuel financing. So to date, since the Paris Agreement was signed to now, $434 billion has flowed from Chase to oil and gas exploration and financing. Now, the big players aren't the only ones that have, greenwashed. A few years ago, Aspiration, so it's a climate marketed as a climate first bank. They were actually toting, planting trees, being green. At the end of the day, back in 2021, a lot of it though was just, commitments that they were marketing as stuff that had been done. But when you looked at the fine print, nothing had actually been planted. We also know that planting trees is not the most efficient or effective way for offsetting carbon. That's another story, another topic. But since then, they've actually, repositioned the company a bit, focusing more on enterprise as well as personal finance options, and have definitely walked back a lot of the claims they were making around what they had already done for the environment. And then moving on into the world of investing. So GreenPortfolio has conducted its own analysis last fall, looking at funds that have ESG or green in their title. And what you can see here is 80% of those funds still had ties either to fossil fuel production or distribution, a lot directly into oil and gas, and then even some still in coal, which is really concerning for a retail investor who has been marketed that ESG investing is good for the environment. And that kind of brings me to this main topic around how do ESG ratings, how does ESG investing fall into this in terms of greenwashing or not? And ESG ratings have their place. It's a metric that was created, in the institutional investing world to help people and companies understand financial risk mitigation. So ESG ratings are more about how a company will stand the test of time against, environment, social, governance factors, not what that company is doing to impact those factors. So it is not the same thing as impact investing. So what you can see here is this is a representative aggregate scoring across a couple of different ESG ratings for oil companies. So this is the environmental score component of their ESG score. And you can see like quite high, Exxon, 87 out of 100. This is really done because, as I mentioned, it's how a company will stand the test of time against its peers. So that's the other key thing typically in how ESG ratings work is you're doing it by industry sector. So Exxon can look really great here because it's doing better than other oil and gas companies in terms of its long-term financial performance and success. So just keeping that in mind, when you look at green revenue, obviously, or scope 1, 2, 3 emissions for these companies, you'd see a different story. And now switching gears into why this is important and why personal finance can actually have a really large impact. So some studies out of the UK show that if you move your retirement, your pension from a traditional fund into a more sustainable fund, you actually can be having more of an impact 21 times in lowering your carbon footprint than all of these other daily lifestyle activities combined. So it's really important to think about this because the amount of time you spend 24/7 thinking about the different actions you can take, which is great, it's not to discount these. If you can just spend a bit of time on a quarterly basis looking at your finances, which you're probably doing anyway because you're looking to make sure that you're making money and you're getting set up for retirement, you can actually have a larger impact with how your money is shifted. And the good news is here that my generation of millennials, also Gen Z, really want to be able to do this and are also controlling 9 trillion in wealth, and it's only going to be growing in the next couple of years. Based on what Morgan Stanley found, 91% of us want to be able to track the environmental impact of our finances, but based on our own polling, it's extremely difficult to do for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned on that first slide, right? Greenwashing, trying to figure out what the impact actually is, the amount of reading that has to be done in terms of annual reports, triangulating off different metrics, looking at different things and setting up your own system. It's very daunting and it's very exhausting for people. So some things that you can do right now, that I would suggest and what we've heard from our customers is you really need to look and do a lot of due diligence, a lot of research on your own. There are resources to help with this. So, you can look at the bank's level of fossil fuel financing. We have data on this on our website, but we also know that, Rainforest Action Network puts out a report every year on this. It's a good source for this information if you want to cross-reference it with what the bank is saying. And then you also want to look at disclosures in terms of what the climate positive investment is. So is it truly going towards renewable energy investment? Is it going towards more generic claims? Is it sustainable from an environmental perspective or also from a DEI perspective? It's just things that you want to dig into. Looking at the annual reports as well as impact reports that financial institutions as well as funds, if you're investing in them, put out every year. An impact report for a fund will show you how things are screened for inclusion or not inclusion as far as a holding in a fund. You can also look at, sometimes there's even emissions level reporting or goals around this. And the other thing that's important to look at too is what types of disclosures are coming out in their annual reporting for companies and financial institutions around emissions. We know that a lot of companies are not reporting around scope 3. Banking specifically, it's important to look at scope 3 emissions because that's where all the lending activity falls. So there's a category in scope 3 that will actually show you, what downstream activity is happening at the bank from a lending perspective. Other things to look at, fossil fuel involvement, fossilfreefunds.org, in addition to us, they do a pretty good job of screening for fossil fuel in fund level activity, manual search, but they have good data. And then, as I mentioned, it's really important to scrutinize anything that's labeled green or ESG. It does not mean that it's necessarily doing what you think it is for the environment. And so shifting gears a little bit and talk about how my company, GreenPortfolio, wants to help, you as an individual or, employees at your organizations, figure out how to align their finances with their climate values. We're launching our platform next month to really focus on how you as an individual can see, what your bank account, your investments, eventually like your credit card fees, your mortgage, all these different financial products are doing, and show you winners and losers from a climate perspective, and then show you lists of greener alternatives in terms of how you can make that switch. And so if you look here, our scoring is different from an ESG rating because it's really based on main things that actually affect climate. So business operations, emissions, future planning. We can look at all of this, put it into our algorithm, and assess companies and funds and banks to give you your own personal green portfolio score. You can also look at, when you want to search for something different, you can look at the company level or the fund level. And we also provide you not just this overarching score, but we'll give you a scorecard with other metrics on there to help you, filter and prioritize what you want to see. So it's just a couple examples of like positive and negative activities that we can show. Is the company sourcing energy from renewable sources? Do they have a science-based target to reduce emissions? Are they involved in a high emissions industry? Are they producing coal, fossil fuel? There's just a couple examples of what we show to make sure that you have all the information at your fingertips. And that's really what we want to do. Like, we want to make sure that everyone has access to this information. It's information that institutional investors have had for quite some time. Retail investors should also be able to have this information. And we want you to have the full picture so you can learn, plan, and act all from one place and source of truth. So nothing out there today really is as focused on the retail investor or the average consumer as us. We focus on a climate mindset. Like, we do not try to lump everything into one score, environment, social governance. We right now focus solely on climate. And then we want to give you coverage across not just banking options, but investments, how to get other financial products like insurance, credit cards, mortgages. We'll continue to expand to make sure that you have a comprehensive list of things. And today, if you want to do this, you're looking at, like I mentioned, ESG ratings, which are not synonymous with impact, product reviews, ad hoc. So there are some resources out there that do look at banking or look at funds. It's still a lot of manual searching. A lot of aggregation needs to be done on your end. And then if you're fortunate enough, you could have a financial advisor or a wealth manager that is well-versed in the topic. But typically what we've seen from our customers is when they've talked to these people, it tends to be more around ESG investing and not as much around climate aligned investing. So, we're really here to close that gap for you as individuals to make sure that you can vote with your dollar. That's really what's powerful about our platform is, people are switching banks. They're doing this already. We've seen it through different activist groups, but there's no one right now aggregating how much money has shifted or making sure that the average shareholder has a voice. And with more and more people joining our platform, GreenPortfolio will be able to do that for you. And so, I talked about the problem. I talked about what we could do today. Try to give you some other resources in addition to what I mentioned. At the consumer level, if you go to our website, greenportfolio.com Earth Month, there'll be a couple of different options for you to sign up for. So one is our platform. We're launching in about a month. So you'll be able to, get early access to that. We also have, you scroll down to supplement what the great work that Sierra Club and Rainforest Action Network do every year with looking at fossil fuel financing based on the top 10 big, US retail banks. We actually looked further into this, looking at where the money is flowing, the climate positive commitments from these banks, as well as what they're doing in terms of good behavior and what they're doing in terms of not so good behavior from a climate perspective. So if you really want to learn about everything that maybe your big bank that you're at is doing, download that report. And then if you want, we also have the ability to give you a climate score for a company or a fund now. So you have a Google form on this website as well. We'll get back to you in about a week, with an analysis, a light analysis of one of the companies that we've scored. And so if you, though, are looking more from a company or an employer perspective, you can email me at hello@greenportfolio.com. What we're doing right now is offering the platform to companies that want to provide that as a perk to their employees. What we found through our discussions is attraction retention in terms of making sure companies are walking the walk from a climate perspective with millennial and Gen Z talent really aids in attraction and retention. Based on the surveys that we've seen, usually someone's leaving around 2 years. If the person believes that the company is actually mission aligned, they'll stay actually for, on average, an additional 3 more years. So they'll stay at the company for 5 years versus 2, which really helps with turnover and culture. And then we also have the ability to license our rating technology. At this point, we want to make sure that we're focused on retail investors and consumers because we believe that everyone deserves to know what their money is funding. But we want to be able to reach as many people as possible, and through that is definitely with partnerships with larger institutions who can leverage our rating system. And with that, I would love to really open it up for questions. Here's our team. So I, along with Bonnie, are the founders. We also have a great talented group of people in tech, user experience, marketing, and data science working with us. We're really proud of our team. So with that, I'll open it up for just kind of conversation and any questions.
Thanks, Elizabeth, for joining. This is a great presentation. I had a quick question before someone jumps in. This platform, is it a proprietary rating mechanism, and what kind of data do you use? And is it public data, private data, or do you perform any additional operations on that data? Because many times people are also concerned about their privacy. So if you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So the scoring algorithm is proprietary. It's our trade secret. When we are looking at assessing a company or a fund, we are using publicly disclosed information from the company itself, as well as a few other third-party sources. What we do then is, our algorithm and our data scientists, put all of it in. We calculate out the score. We use our estimation model to fill in the gaps because, as we all know, not every company is necessarily reporting. So we have our own methods for assessing that, as does every ratings company. And that's how we do that today. In terms of, I think you mentioned privacy, user data, we are not in the business of selling people's personal identifying information. That is not what we want to do here. What we do have you do is you have the option of either manually inputting your financial information or using Plaid to allow us to connect and pull in. So we're not holding your your bank login information. And then from a data analysis standpoint, we really are just looking more at anonymized shifts. So as we can serve information to you as an individual on our platform about like maybe Apple does something great from a climate perspective and the score changes, we want to be able to see how you as a shareholder, react to that. And then looking at how things move, we can then provide, interesting insights to companies and about how industries change based on, behavior that you as a shareholder see.
Got it. That's great news. And then maybe a follow-up question, and Laura also has some question here. Is this B2B, B2C, or both in the retail space?
So we're really B2C. Now we're currently focused on getting consumers, retail investors onto our platform. And as I mentioned, we're not a financial advisor. We're not an asset manager. We're here for providing you that information. But what we see really in terms of scaling is B2B2C. So working with employers, working with, we're with asset managers who can license our rating to incorporate it, that you would then be able to see on their platform. Because at the end of the day, our mission is to decarbonize $4 trillion in retail financial assets. And, we just feel that consumers and retail investors have been left in the dark on this, and that's not okay.
No, definitely. And let me read Laura's question. How do you present alternative portfolio insights to your customer? Is it a dashboard? And what level of due diligence do you apply to your recommendations?
Sure. So as I mentioned, so we're not a financial advisor. So we will give you a comparison ability where you can filter yourself. We'll give a list of roughly, 10 greener alternatives in a similar industry sector to what you are invested in. And we'll give you the historical performance of these funds or companies, but we're not going to suggest to you like a one-to-one change. That's really up to you. And it's more what we focus on is like the climate alignment. There's two different schools of thought, divestment. So get rid of everything from a fossil fuel perspective, or maybe you want to exert some shareholder pressure on a company, and maybe you want to keep one in order to try and raise your voice there. We believe that journey is very personal, and so we're there to help you in either of those journeys.
Great, thanks for that. And then is this only US or global?
Right now, only US.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Laura. I think Laura's good with the answers. Any other questions from anyone for Elizabeth? And then the resources Elizabeth will share with our community as well when we publish the recording, and they can reach out to you, and we'll put it up on our website and so on. Thanks for joining today. Let me see if there are any other questions.
Yeah.
Hey, Matthew, thanks for joining.
Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or sign up on our website. Thanks for having me.